Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mercatani with another episode of Mat Chat. We are brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. It is Friday morning. This will probably come out about a week after this because we've got another one going on, but pleased to be joined by my buddy Jason Keck from Greater Heights and by your new world team member, 61 kgs. From Wisconsin, Seth Gross. Seth, it's nice to meet you, and thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to get on here, chat with you guys a little bit, and always just appreciate you having me.
Well, I've had Reader on, and you know Bono better than I do. I don't know if he would talk for 45 minutes straight, so
I'm sure you could get him on here. I bet he'd get on and do it.
He'd probably be on a treadmill or something the whole time.
Yeah.
All right, well, we want to dive into a lot of different things. The thing that I think, if we didn't ask this, it'd be a terrible podcast, is let's go to Final X. So we did picks. All of us picked Dayton and 2 on our pod. And I think there were a lot of reasons to think that, right? How it went the last time you guys wrestled, the fact that Dayton's at home, the fact that you had to go through the qualifier, the fact that
he's a silver medalist.
Yeah, he's a silver medalist. I mean, you had a couple close matches at Coralville where I was at. And let me start with this, because I'm a nerd. I like to understand the technical adjustments you make. You get through World Team Trials, and obviously you have fix. And you lost 10-0 the last time you wrestled him. How much – I'm always fascinated by this. How much of it is you fixing – you adjusting to your stuff, and how much of it is, for example, like, hey, we can't do this versus this guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me it was just huge. Even wrestling him last year, I've always been a guy throughout my career that if I can just get my hands on somebody, kind of feel what they're looking to do, and being able to just get out there and compete and adjust as I go, it's always been beneficial for me. And so after wrestling last year and being able to go back, watch that film and kind of pick it apart and dissect it, it was just a lot of stupid mistakes on my part, me being undisciplined in my areas. Right. I mean, a ton of the points that I gave up, 6 of the points that I gave up in that first match last year was I grabbed a 2-on-1 and I stood straight up and he just picked my far knee. Right. So that was an easy adjustment to, right, go in the practice room and be disciplined. When you grab your 2-on-1, you stay down in your stance, you stay a little lower, and you get your angle. So that was 6 of the points in the match right there from that. Another one, right, you look at the match, I was in deep on double leg, blasting him out of bounds. I overpressured and he slid me by. Right. And so that's another position that, right, it's just being smart, being disciplined, taking your time. And being better positionally. But I went through, looking at each of the things in that match, and it was like, the big takeaway that I took from it was, I just didn't use my opportunities correctly. It wasn't that I didn't have opportunities. It's not that, he was doing anything crazy. It's just I was a little bit sloppy. I was undisciplined. And so I got text, but I felt, going back and watching it, picking it apart, I felt pretty confident. So that was, and outside of that, he has a lot of tendencies as far as what he likes to do, how he likes to score, in the areas that he's good in. And another huge thing is, he's a monster in the top position. So it's like, give him as little chances to get on top of you as possible.
Yeah, we had Gilman on last week, and he sort of talked the same thing about Vito, right, with that leg lace. There's a lot of cool takeaways from that, but what I love is you lost 10-0 and you watch the film and you're like, I feel pretty confident now. I think obviously you're a coach as well. And so I think that's important for coaches to find something for their athlete to be confident about. I know Bono and Rita are super high energy, super mindset. You got to see it. You got to speak it into existence. I know those guys are, preaching that same thing to you. The 2 out of 3 you guys had was really interesting because he obviously, for people who don't know, he won the first match, you won the next 2 matches, but in all 3 matches, he had a big lead. I didn't say big, but a significant lead, like 4, 5 points. The first one, you just looks like in hindsight, you ran out of time. You lost on criteria, and then you caught him the next 2.
Yeah.
So I got a bunch of questions here, and then I'll let Jason ask whatever he wants. But A, did you feel him getting tired? B, do you make adjustments in the periods? And C, do you make adjustments between matches 1 and 2 and 2 and 3?
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that first match, right, it was more, right, I'd say first period feeling him out a little bit. Probably was a little hesitant on taking my attacks, so they weren't as sharp and as powerful as later on. Like, he had a quick go behind in that first match in the first period. And then one thing that it happened just in that first match, I didn't let it happen again, right? He grabbed underhook. He was pushing me. And instead of clearing out of it, I kind of tried to fight back a little bit, and then he actually got the other side. And that's where he walked me out of bounds, got a caution in one and the push out. So he scored 2 points off of that. And that was just clear underhook right away. That was an easy fix, right then and there, on the mat. As he pushed me out, I was like, what are you doing, right? Don't ever let him get an underhook again. And if he does, right, you're clearing out and you're getting to your stuff. So that happened in the first match. That was an easy adjustment to make. As far as scoring points, right, I definitely felt him tiring, right? I could hear it in his breath and his body language, and kind of as the match went on, right? It's almost like you kind of smell blood sometimes. I kind of smelled that, and I knew it was time I got to go now, right? And it was first match. I'm down 5-0, and I'm like, I got nothing to lose. Why not go figure out how to score on this guy? Now you're going to have something to take to those next matches. So I opened up a little bit more, and I pressured on him and got a lot of push outs, got him to the edge and wore him down a little bit, and kind of felt where I could make some opportunities.
I love the nothing to lose part, because, Jason coaches a kids club that's won the state tournament since 1943, I think. So these guys win it every year. And I think part of that mindset is every match is a learning experience, even if it's a state finals, because you're going to come wrestle next year. Yeah. One last thing, and then Jason, jump in. What did it feel like, obviously, being in Stillwater? And what was that like wrestling on his home court?
Honestly, I love it. I love, you don't get a lot of opportunities like that, right? To go into other people, right? Somewhere somebody's undefeated, returning world medalist, in their hostile environment, just for me, it was a really cool opportunity to do. Once again, not that if it was anywhere else, people would have thought I was going to win, but right, stacking the odds even more against, in his favor a little bit more. And so that's always been fun to go out and, do something that not a lot of people think is possible, right? But it's just fun wrestling in those hostile environments. It makes wrestling fun. It makes it exciting. You get almost a little more chip on your shoulder, a little more up for those matches, going into Carver Hawkeye, going into, right, wherever you're wrestling, Penn State, you go into Stillwater, right, all these great environments, right? It's kind of, there's something special about being able to go into somebody else's city and take that win and walk away from it. So I just looked at it as a really cool opportunity, just to be able to have a chance to do that at his home arena.
Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, Seth, you talked about a little bit of kind of the self-coaching or the mental process that you have during the matches. I think that's interesting. You've talked a lot about your faith. Give us kind of a bird's eye view of you getting ready for your match. Does it involve prayer? Does it involve that mental coaching to get yourself where you need to be when you step on the mat? And then once you're on the mat, having, that same mindset to be able to coach yourself, to be your best coach, and to get through situations where maybe, a certain position didn't work out well, but you felt it, you knew, you were there, and then being able to go back to it and score again.
Yeah, absolutely. So as far as going into my matches, I'm pretty similar pretty much every time I wrestle. I got my routine down pretty good now, but I'll kind of get my warm up in, whatever. But after I get my warm up in and really get my heart rate going, I sit down, kind of go find a quiet area by myself, and that's where I just say my prayers, and it's pretty much the same prayer every time. And I just pray that me and my opponent can stay safe when we step out there on the mat. I pray that I'm able to go out there and wrestle to the best of my abilities. And I pray that, no matter win or lose, that I wrestle and hold myself in a way that glorifies God. And that's kind of the three things that I hit on every time. And, sometimes I'm going through little injuries or this and that. So I'll say some prayers based around that stuff, but it's pretty similar. I'll say that. And then I like to go, I'm not one of those guys that gets jumping up and down and smacking myself going into a match, right? I like to be really relaxed and just focused. And the more relaxed I can be, that's where I feel like I can really kind of coach, right? Like we were just talking about, coach myself in my head. When I'm too wired and too, in the zone, right? I almost am going too fast with things I'm not thinking. And I think one of my most valuable things in wrestling is being able to think in the moment when I'm on the mat. And so once I get out there, it's just in time, game time adjustments. And I don't know if this is just, if I'm the only one that does it, but I'm always like in my head, I'm like, all right, you got to do this with your hands. Remember your left hand's the important one. Stay on his head. And so that's just, I'm always talking to myself, always kind of telling myself what to do in my head. And it's like it's just nonstop. Always, if you can continue to make adjustments throughout the match and stop those areas that you get exposed, the sooner you can do it, the better chance you're going to have in a match. So it's just always little things I go, like another one, right? He got into a single leg. I went chest wrap and he was able to circle around and get his head. The next time I actually went chest wrap and then I switched off to a different move, but it's just like, right, that didn't work. I got to try something else now. That didn't work. I got to try this different angle, right? He's got me. I almost took him down, right? Create space and then go back in. Just this little things that, right, continuing to wrestle through every position. And, if somebody's going to score and you try everything possible or every position possible to make sure that they don't.
That theme seems to be very much like, I know I've heard Jason tell his kids that, and a lot of coaches that I really respect, it's like, especially in practice, right? Wrestle through every position, try stuff, because you'll never know. You're not going to pull the trigger on something in a match that you've never tried in practice. So I'm super interested in, like, in between periods. Jason and I were talking about this off air, that 30 seconds, which really is like 12 by the time you walk over and walk back.
Yeah.
If I'll put it to you two ways, you as a coach and you being coached, is it more important that coach says a specific thing like, hey, remember to keep your left collar tie vertical and don't float? Or is it more just to be super positive with you, like, hey, you're going to win this match. He's getting tired. Just keep doing your stuff. Because I don't feel like in 30 seconds, there's a lot of time to do both. And I know it's not a one or the other, but which one works better for you in which scenarios?
Yeah. I'm not sure. I say for me, to be honest, like I walk over there and I got so much going on in my head that for my coaches, I think it's just, right, kind of get my arms loose and, little things, refocus, move your feet. But really, I don't hear probably too much. Like if they were trying to go into technical things, I feel like I'm probably thinking so many things in my head right now about what I got to adjust that I don't hear it very well. But I think a big cue that my coach always give me is just move your feet. Because that's one thing that I do get lazy on in matches is my feet will get still because I'm, like I said, I think a lot and I'm trying to, get my game plan, and sometimes my feet start getting stuck still. So that's a big one that I feel like throughout matches in the corner, just move your feet, and just reemphasize that to me a lot, I think is big.
Well, I think the tone of positivity, like this goes way back, but the 1 year Duke beat Kentucky in this crazy game and they threw the ball 80 feet and then Leitner makes the shot. They said that when they went the timeout beforehand, Krzyzewski goes, here's how we're going to win the game. No. Instead of like, well, we're going to try this play or something like that. And so that sort of assumptive victory, that assumptive positivity, I think something's really important. So, I mean, Jason, I kind of want to switch gears a little bit here. You okay with that before we go to something else?
Yeah. Just kind of the second part of that question, Seth. Now you're getting experience as a coach. When you have a chance to talk to athletes, like, before the match, coaching during the match, after the match, David and I went last year and we were on the floor watching Penn State and Iowa wrestle. And in watching the two coaching staffs, they could not be more different in the middle of a contentious bout. You know, they just do it differently, and what they say to their wrestlers obviously is different.
Mm-hmm.
What have you found kind of in your young career as a coach and being a high level athlete? What has worked for you on that end in building a relationship? It seems like you've got a good relationship with your guys.
Yeah.
And how does that work for maybe some of the newer coaches that watch this pod?
Yeah, I think the big thing is to know, like, the day of the match, right? The work is done, right? My athlete, or the guys on our team, right? They've done everything they need to do to get to this point. So that's a big thing, right? Knowing, just really reminding them of the preparation, that they're ready to go, that right, they have their game plan, right? I don't need to re-break down exactly what they got to do and tell them, right? I don't want them overthinking when they go out there. So it's just, right, staying, like we just kind of touched on, staying really positive with them. Like, let's go, champ. You're about to, right, go out there and get this done, or just giving them, right? And like I said, it's kind of individualized though, right? Some guys need to get smacked in the face and yelled at a little bit to get going. But, you know, there's some guys that are more similar to me, where it's just, right, give them some positive affirmations before they go out there, and let them know, like, hey, you deserve this. You put in the work. You got your game plan, right? You're ready to go. But I think it is individualized. I think I'd say most of the guys on our team is more, right, give them the positive, give them some affirmations, and things like that. I know we got a couple guys that would rather, right, get amped up, get smacked in the head and yelled at a little bit, like, you got to do this, this, and this, and reminded. But I think like I said, I think it's, you got to personalize it, because everybody's a little bit different. But for me, I know the way I like to get you right is that positive affirmations.
Yeah. And it's important because, like, when I wrestled, like, nobody ever talked about just relaxing and having fun, and it doesn't really matter. And that's kind of the new thing. And it's probably way more mentally healthy than when I was doing it. So,
yeah.
So I've had Cody Brewer on the podcast, and I'll say the same quote to Cody I said to Cody, I think you're incapable of having a 2-to-1 freestyle match. And I mean that as a compliment, because so many of us are scared to pull the trigger. So many of us are scared to commit to a movement, even if it's like 51-49.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is this, I love Reader and Bono. I would not want to be in charge of the brick in your corner. You can't throw it too soon, because you seem to end up with about 5 or 6 50-50s in every match.
Yeah.
So, number one, how do you get yourself so free to try stuff? And number two, it's probably a direct correlation of that, is how do we teach our guys, our girls, to not try to win a match 3-2? Like, I mean, you've been in a ton of matches, you're at the highest level. Like, there's guys that'll be up 2-0 with 4 minutes left and try to shut it down. It's like, yeah.
I tell you, the biggest thing, and I think for a lot of people, is just learning to let go of the result, right? Really be focused on, if I want to become the best wrestler I can be, right? If my goal is just to reach my fullest potential, right? Being worried about just winning this specific match isn't going to get me to that point. But what will get me to that point is going out there, throwing everything I can, trying everything I know, figuring out how I can make things work. If I go out there and I fail, right, I have a whole lot to take, right, to improve upon. But if I go out there and we stand and we hand fight and we wrestle a 1-to-1 match, what do I take away from that match? Right? How do I take that match and get better from it? Right? And I don't think there's a lot of ways, right? There's maybe, hey, there was this spot where you could have attacked, but you didn't, right? And it's more, you missed a lot of opportunities, maybe would be the takeaway. But if I go in there and I shoot this and this guy goes behind, now I know that, hey, when I take this shot, right, I got to recover by doing this. But I feel like when I go out there and I have a 20-point match, right, a 13-10 or whatever it is, and wrestle like that, there's so much to take away and improve upon. And I feel like we talked about a little bit earlier, when I'm able to kind of, as I'm coaching myself out there too, as in the middle of the match, right, when I'm doing that, right, there's so many adjustments I can make, that maybe this single didn't work the first 2 times, but if I make this adjustment, right, I can actually try it right then and there. So it's just, right, you're going to be on a higher trajectory, and you're going to reach your potential faster if you're willing to make mistakes, if you're willing to go for it, right? If you're willing to try new move, right? Maybe moves that you've never actually done in a match, but you've done in practice, right? And I see that a lot is you see guys in live in the room, in the practice room, right? They're hitting all these moves and trying new things, and then it's like they go to the match and then they stick to the 2 moves they've been doing since they were 10 years old, and you're like, man, we got to open up, man. You got to try, and right. So it's hard, and like I said, I'd say the biggest thing is let go of the result and be focused on becoming the best version, right? Reaching your fullest potential.
The kid on your team that reminds me the most of this, and I want to make sure it's pronounced Hamidi. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, Hamidi. Yep.
Hamidi. Okay, Hamidi. He seems like that. Like he seems like the kind of kid that would rather lose 9-8 than win 2-1. Like maybe not lose versus win, but we'll cut it loose. And he seems like a kid you would love to coach.
Yeah, absolutely. He's 100 miles per hour in everything he does. And so, yeah, what you see when he's out there, like he's doing that in practice. He's making things up in practice and trying it and putting himself in positions. And so, right, he's out there free, right? And he knows and he's confident that if there's 30 points on the board, I guarantee that I got more than the other guy, right? But, you look at the very few matches he did lose, right? It was guys that, stopped his opportunities, kept it to lower matches, things like that. And so it's crazy. He's gotten already so much better than he was at the NCAA tournament last year. And that's just because he's very creative. He's always innovating, pushing what, might be the normal, like, hey, this is how everybody, right? He tries new things and he's got a lot of very uniqueness to him. And he's very long. He's got a lot of length and reach that allows him to do some things that not a lot of guys can do.
Yeah, that weight class is going to be fire next year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, somebody told me this analogy once. It's like if you play golf against the best person in the world on one hole in your backyard, get to put the pin, you have probably a 1 in 100 chance of winning. But if you play 18 holes, you have 0 chance of winning. And the analogy is if you're better than me and we wrestle a 1 scramble match, I might sneak you. Yeah. But if we wrestle a 9 scramble match, you're going to win 5 or 6 of those and win the match.
Exactly.
I think the hard part's the courage, though, right? Like the courage you're saying. But I wrote this down. I always try to get one phrase, and I'm sure there'll be others, but learning to let go of the result is really powerful. Mm-hmm. Like this doesn't define you. This one match doesn't. I feel like you're the kind of guy that if you lost match 3, you'd just be the same positive human being that we're talking to now. Be like, I got to get back to the drawing board and figure out how to make the team next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And right, it's not easy to do that, but that's like one thing that, like I said, that even that prayer I say before my match, right, regardless if I win or lose, right, I got to glorify God. And my identity is not found in my wins or losses. So when my identity is not found in that, I'm going to walk off, right? I'm not, the 10 minutes after, I'm not going to be very happy and I didn't want to lose and this and that. But the next day I'm going to wake up and see everything that I have to be grateful for and know that it was just a wrestling match. And I don't know who said this one, but one that kind of stuck with me a few years back was, right, no matter how, when you win a match, right, that high and that excitement, right, a couple days later it goes back to normal, right? You lose a match, that low that you're at, things go back to normal a couple days later. So no matter what high or what low, right, happens out there, things are going to go back to normal. So dwelling on the loss or worrying about a loss or a win, right, it's just not worth it. So once you can learn to really just let go of that result, right, you can really enjoy just being out there and enjoy every second that you get to step on the mat. And that's another huge area is like just being grateful, because I know as I continue to get older, right, I've been wrestling for 20 years of my life, but at some point my competition career is going to be over. And you take that for granted when you're young because you don't see that the end is so near. But it's like as I'm getting older and older, I really am more and more grateful for every chance that I get to step out there and compete, and especially, like I said, in those cool environments, like being in Stillwater, being in Gallagher-Iba, getting that, like some point that's going to come to an end. I'm not going to be able to do that anymore. So for right now, I'm just happy that I get to do that. And if I win, I'm going to try my best. I'm going to put my 100% effort to do that. And if I lose, I still put my 100% effort and did, everything as far as preparation, being confident in myself and just letting it fly. So,
yeah, it's awesome. Jason, go ahead.
Yeah. So I want you to go back to your match at the challenge tournament with Mendez. What an awesome match for you to be able to stay in the match and with you and Rana coming to Kansas City and hang out with us. Of course I'm pulling for you, and like Kale and I were watching your match, and we're texting each other, and like when you came back, like so excited and like oh my gosh, like he gets the trap arm, and then you're just turning him back and forth, and I mean going bananas. But so you talk about not being focused on the result, but when you're in a match like that and you're behind and the thoughts maybe are creeping in about hey, if I lose this match, now my world team chances are over. I'm wrestling a really good high school kid, but he's still a high school kid, and I'm an NCAA champ. And what happens if I lose to the high school kid? And all that. And then again, like you said, you have all these thoughts going on, and then the whistle blows, and you're in the next sequence. So how does that work in your mindset to be able to stay disciplined and tough enough to be able to seize your opportunity like you did in that match and to be able to advance?
Yeah, and I think a big thing, right, is naturally, right, those thoughts might start coming into people's head. The big thing that I focus on, right, is how can I win the next moment. All right, we talk about winning the day, winning this, right, but when you're in that match, you need to focus on winning that moment. And if I fill my thoughts with this kid's a high schooler and this and that, and right, it's easy to go downhill even faster. So as I'm out there, right, instead of filling it as that, it's like, all right, in this moment, what can I do, right? And a big thing that I was thinking is I got to get on top of this guy, right? That's one position that we haven't read. My feet aren't moving well this match. You're not, that scramble where I crotch lifted, they gave him 4, and it was a little iffy on the edge. And right, I probably did, honestly, that's one thing that I probably didn't let go, right? It was kind of stuck, like, how did they give him 4 on that? And I think that held me back for a little bit of that match mentally. But it's figuring out a way to get those thoughts out of your head and figure out right now in this moment, what can I do to win this match, right? How can I point by point, piece by piece, get back into here? And so I felt in the position. He was trying to gut me, and a pretty loose gut, and I float guts a lot and practice that a little bit. And so I floated over it, caught him on his back there, and then as he turned down, I was like, this is the time. Like, you got to go get this right now. Like, it's now or never. And so I went hard, went everything I got to get that trap arm and locked it up. And I was not going to let him get that wrist back. I was squeezing for dear life there.
Yeah, as my dad would say, you started turning him like a doorknob. So, yeah, it was pretty impressive. So a buddy of mine, we started doing this thing where we're asking people to send us questions. So my buddy Ben G in Michigan said, outside of your normal wrestling training, what are some other things you have done or continue to do that have helped pave your way to your success on the mat?
Yeah. I think that's been a huge area of growth for me over the last year or so. Is really every piece of my life has been improving as far as recovery, sleep, nutrition, right? All the little things. My diet's a little different now. I've always been fairly disciplined, like I'd say 80% disciplined on my diet when I'm in the season. But now I feel like it's more of a lifestyle for me. Like I live this now. I live this diet and live trying to make my body feel and perform the best it can, which has been huge for me. Like in college, if you would have caught me, 3 months out of competition, I'd probably be pretty out of shape, not ready to probably compete and go win. And over this last year, it's been really it's a lifestyle. This is right. I want to live if wrestling wasn't here, I'd still want to be in the best shape I could possibly be. I want to be, I want my body to be able to, I want to be longevity in the sport after competition days. There's a lot of things that, right, where in the past it was like, all right, I'm going to be on this diet so I can win in wrestling. Now it's, I want to be on this diet because I want my body to feel the best it can in every area of life. I want to be as strong as possible. I want, And so that's been a huge area of growth for me, that there's no roller coaster now. It's just, right, I keep my nutrition dialed in at all times. And with that being said, when I say that it's 85% like strict on my diet, like, hey, if once a week I want to go get the little dessert or ice cream cone, like, hey, once a week's all right, but I'm dialed in, you know, all the time now. And so that's been a huge area of growth. And then just really taking care of my body a lot more. Once again, going back to college days, I was really a guy that every single practice was go a million miles per hour, which at some point that's going to wear your body down a little bit and start tearing it apart. And so now it's training a little bit smarter. And then as soon as you're done training, go recover, go stretch, go right, hot tub, cold tub, a lot of things. But yeah, it's just, yeah, dialing in, right? Like you said, every area of your life feeds into your success on the mat, right? It's not just, hey, you show up, you train so good in the practice room, you're doing the things right when you're in here. So what are you doing every minute of your life? And, you know, that's something that, right, if you just ask yourself, you know, when in the moment, whatever you're doing, like, hey, is this benefiting my future? Does this line up and correlate with my goals that I have? Right. And if the answer is no, you probably shouldn't be doing it. Right. So make sure that everything you do outside of wrestling, right, is still going to get you closer to your goals.
Yeah, I think people try to tiptoe on both sides of it, right? Like there's this funnel of success, right? Like there's a million kids. I don't, maybe not. There's a bunch of kids that can go win Tulsa one time, right? And then winning one state title, and then even maybe winning Fargo. But a lot of times you can get away with that on talent or good coaching or just being more physically developed. And then you see these guys that were hammers and the other people catch up to them, and it's this lifestyle. And in your story as well, known how, you know, you made some decisions and then corrected them, and now this is where you are now. Tell us about the carnivore diet, because I'm a guy that, first of all, I think every guy in America likes meat. So, hey, by the way, if Traeger's watching this, we want a sponsorship. We've been asking them. We need to get a Traeger sponsorship. So,
I love it.
How is it different than keto or paleo? You know, does it help with energy? Does it help you lose weight, maintain weight? You know, tell us about that, because anything where you're encouraged to eat as much meat as possible, I think is probably pretty good. So.
Yeah. And the big reason that I went, right, so through, I'd say in the past, my big thing is I just tracked my macros, right, my carbs, my fats, my proteins, and I felt really good doing that, and I had a lot of success with that diet. The one thing, though, over the last year, I had a labral tear in my hip that got really bad. It was causing me a lot of just pain. And then having a previous spinal fusion, my back was starting to get just crazy tight. And so there's just a lot of inflammation in my body. And one of the, you know, I started to research, and I saw a doctor, I got an MRI, and they're like, you got to have surgery probably at some point. But right for now, you can take these anti-inflammatories, and I was taking pills a little bit, taking those anti-inflammatories to keep it down. And it was helping to an extent. If I could keep the inflammation down, my hip would feel halfway decent. But I was like, as I took them more, they started working less and less. And I just didn't want to keep taking pills every day to feel good. So I was like, what else can I do, you know, to naturally get this inflammation out of my body? And I've done keto in the past, and I just didn't feel great. So I stumbled upon the carnivore diet and this carnivore community, and I was like reading the benefits. And one of the big ones was, right, removing the inflammation in your body, and tons of other positive stuff I read about it. And like, hey, I'm a guy that's just, right, try it out. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So I was like, I'm gonna try this out and see how I feel. And so as far as the diet goes, it's 90% of what I eat is red meat and eggs. And so steak and eggs, ground beef and eggs, is basically what I eat 90% of the time. And then outside of that, I do still add in a little bit of carbs. So I'll do, like, on days that I have a couple workouts, right, I'll do raw honey, I'll do fruits, I'll do things like that to give me a little extra energy. But within, I'd say, a month and a half, 2 months, like, the hip pain that I had went gone. Like, I have zero hip pain now. I actually still see our hip specialist, spine doctor down here at Madison, and my mobility in my hip, I've actually gained like 15, 20 degrees of mobility. since like back when I got an MRI and everything. So it's like, it feels like I don't have anything wrong with my hip at all. My back's been extremely good. And so the inflammation's just gone. And so that's why, and right, I talked about like being more disciplined all year round. It's like, I know if I go back to eating a different way or eating junk, that my hip's going to kill again. My back's going to start hurting worse. So that was just, right. Just that alone was enough to keep me on the diet. But outside of that, like, muscle retention's been crazy. Like, even when I was getting down to 61 kilos, after I wrestled at Final X, I got back into lifting again, and my weight stayed extremely similar to what I was lifting before, making 61 kilos. So muscle retention was big. But energy levels is the one thing I think a lot of people get worried about. Like, you're not getting enough carbs. I'd say my energy levels are probably the best they've been. And like I said, I do throw in carbs when I've had, if you have one really long workout and then I try to go again, at that point, I usually I need something. So I'll throw in those carbs as needed. But for the most part, like, I feel, my energy and my stamina and conditioning has been unbelievable. Probably best it's been in a long time.
What's interesting, because you're super lean, a lot like Keck and I, we're all like walking around at 4%. So,
Yeah.
no, but I mean, it's interesting because the whole idea behind a lot of these diets are, if you only take in proteins and fats, your body has to burn the fat as fuel instead of carbs. And so you actually start losing weight and things like that. But it's interesting, literally a guy like you's already a world-class athlete. Usually those are diets for people that are overweight. They're trying to do that. So it's interesting to see that. You mentioned your weight. So I had James Green on like a month ago, and we had probably a 5-minute conversation about if 70 had been an Olympic weight instead of 74, like how his career would be different. I mean, obviously one of the greats of all time, but I mean, when he sucked down to 65, he didn't even look like himself. You're in this unique situation when you got down to 57. I'm not sure anybody that tall is supposed to weigh 125.4. And then to bulk up. So one, what is the plan? And then two, how do you incorporate? Are you going to go down in 24? And then how do you incorporate diet and lifestyle into that?
Yeah, I'll down 1,000,000% be 65 kilo, 24. And so that's why, right, it was cool to kind of I experimented with it a little bit this year. I was considering going 65 kilos this year. And so, right, I tested out. I wrestled Evan Henderson on the super match card, and I blew that match with a couple seconds left, ended up losing by a point, but right, he made it to Final X. Then I went to the Bill Farrell. I beat Ian Parker, Dean Howell, a couple other guys there at 65 kilos. So I know that I can put on the strength, the size, the speed, right, everything to compete at 65 kilos. The only reason I ended up going back to 61 for this year was after the Bill Farrell, I came back, and on that Monday, I weighed like 141, somewhere in there without, right? That was after making weight for Bill Farrell, and just felt normal and whatever. So I was like, my body's still easily in striking distance of 61. So I'm gonna do that for this year. But when I was really trying to put on weight, I got up to, I think 55, 56, and I was still sitting around 10, 11% body fat. So I was feeling extremely good for 65. So that's already, right, obviously in the back of my mind. And as soon after next year, it's getting as big, as strong as possible.
So I don't want to assume this. I would think this is one path, right? Like, you make the 22 world team, you medal, win it. Now you get to sit to 23 Final X.
Yeah.
You make the team again, you medal again. Now it puts you into the semis of the Olympic trials in 24. You're allowed to go up or down. We've 1,000,000% decided you're going up. So now, you bypass, because that's a weight that's like a log jam. Like, there's all these guys that are kind of even on any given day. And, you get to at least skip some of that wrestling, plus you're fresher. Is that the plan in 23? Will you go 61 as well?
As of right now, right, that'd be the plan, is stick to 61. But as soon as that 23 World Championships would be over, I'd be done with 61.
Get on them weights.
At least until that next cycle. We'll see. Maybe go 65 and if it goes well and I wrestle well that Olympic year, I'd stay at 65 moving forward. So,
yeah. Jason, what do you got?
You talked about kind of the lifestyle with nutrition. You said that there's a lot of things in your life that are kind of they're piecing together nicely. You just got married. We were talking to Thomas Gilman. It was that same thing. I think David had a phrase kind of like he talked about being at peace and hungry at the same time, like having a peaceful hunger. And it seems like, that you're at that kind of same place too, where you've kind of found peace in who you are, and then yet still having that hunger to go out there and win world titles. And so it just seems like everything's kind of coming together for you. Talk about that for us.
Yeah. And I really like that peaceful hunger. That's a really good way to kind of describe it. Right. I'm very grateful and feel like I've really matured and grown a lot into, where I want to be and getting to that point where, right, I feel like I'm doing everything right full time. And, I think one thing about that was like, I know we already hit on this, but to go back, it was like, I would tell myself a lot of lies. Like, I'm 3 months from competition. It's okay to eat this. It's okay to do that and this and that. But now I'm at a point where, like I said, right, it's just a lifestyle. And right with that, it comes a lot of peacefulness, a lot of gratefulness, and a lot of those things that, right, it makes it easy to come in here and be hungry, right? It's like my whole focus once I get in here is to, be so focused and so into getting the best out of myself as I can that, right? It's just, yeah, I like that a lot, that peaceful hungriness. Yeah.
Do you think that your commitment in your faith is a catalyst for commitment in other aspects of your life? And if so, how do you stay committed to your faith? Because again, even if you're a believer, it's tough sometimes to stay on that path as well of staying connected and giving quiet time to get into the scripture for me, I like listening to worship music when I'm running or working out. How does that commitment again lead over into other parts of your life, and then how do you stay strong in that aspect of your life too?
Yeah, I think that as far as faith, right, that was right. I think when I really got committed there, it was easier to commit in my other areas, because honestly, right, as far as my faith goes, there's a lot of things that I got to hold myself to a little higher standard as far as reading, getting, being in God's word, saying my prayers, right? Don't be, I don't need to be drinking. I don't need to be going out and doing, like in the past it'd be, once or twice a year, I'd still go drink and have fun, and right, in moderation, it's all right and things like that. But it's like, right, it takes a full commitment to be, right, strong in my faith and make the right decisions and the way I treat people. And so when I really became committed to my faith, it was easy to commit to a diet. It was easy to commit to all these other areas, because God calls us to be the best be the best that we can be. And I feel like God's given me a talent. And if I don't go try my best and do my best in every area, I'm not reaching the potential that, and using the talents that God's given me. So that, like I said, once I really got committed in my faith, like to another.
I think we lost him. Hopefully he'll come back. So Jason, we'll talk about this for a minute, and if not, then we'll sign off. But he's a very, very smart guy, well-spoken, has a lot to he's very insightful, and does a great job of you can tell he'll be a great coach if he chooses to do that, and a great dad, and I'm sure he's a great husband now.
Yeah, for sure. I think again, that force of going all in on making certain things in your life part of the lifestyle that you live versus, dipping your toe in the water or saying that you're committed and then, not fully leading that type of life. So I think, it's interesting to hear from these high level athletes and not only the mindset of it, but the full commitment that they make.
Yeah. So we'll get Gross back on after he wins a world title. And we expect him in all of his interviews to mention peaceful hunger and to hashtag Matt Chat and hashtag USA Wrestling and hashtag Coach Keck and David Mercatani. So for Seth Gross, for Jason Keck, I am David Mercatani. Thank you guys for watching, listening, and sharing. We'll speak to y'all next week.